What are the typical pawn structures in the modern defense? Have you ever wondered how pawn structures can shape the game in the modern defense? This opening is rich with strategic possibilities, and understanding its typical pawn structures can give you an edge. The modern defense begins with the moves one pawn to e4 and one pawn to g6. This setup is closely related to the Pyrrhic defense and often leads to similar positions. The main idea is to let white control the center while black prepares for a counterattack. In the modern defense, black usually plays g6 first. This move prepares to fianchetto the bishop on g7. While it does not immediately challenge white's control of the center, it sets up a solid defensive position. White typically responds with one pawn to d4, aiming to establish a strong pawn center. After that, black plays one pawn to d6. This move supports potential pawn breaks with either c5 or e5, depending on how white continues. One of the primary pawn breaks in the modern defense is c5. This move aims to challenge white's central control and create counterplay on the queen side. If white exchanges the pawn on d for the pawn on c5, black can end up with a structure similar to the Marazzi bind. In this case, white will have pawns on c4 and e4, which can limit black's mobility. Another common pawn break is e5. This move can lead to a more open center and dynamic play. Often, this results in a structure similar to the king's Indian defense. Here, black aims to launch an attack on the king side, taking advantage of the open lines. If black plays c5 without exchanging pawns, the position can resemble the Benoni defense. In this case, black's pawn on c5 directly challenges white's central pawns. White will then look to exploit the weakness on d6. Understanding these pawn structures is essential for building a modern defense repertoire. Players need to be familiar with the plans associated with each structure. For example, if you play e5, you might want to launch a kingside attack. If you choose c5, preparing for a queenside expansion is key. The modern defense is a flexible opening that can surprise opponents and offer black good chances for counterplay. Mastering this opening requires familiarity with various pawn structures and the ability to adapt to different responses from white. This opening is particularly useful for players who enjoy complex, dynamic positions and are willing to invest time in understanding its strategic and tactical elements.